Hello, dear students. Today we are going to discuss about allergic and intrinsic rhinitis. Allergic rhinitis is defined as its IgE-mediated hypersensitivity disease of the mucous membrane of nasal airways, which is characterized by sneezing, itching, watery nasal discharge, sensation of nasal obstruction, postnasal discharge, and hyposmia. It is associated with allergic conjunctivitis and bronchial asthma. Around 40% of all people having allergic rhinitis are prone to develop bronchial asthma in their lifetime. Peak age of allergic rhinitis lies in young adulthood, and prevalence is of around 10 to 20% with a male predominance. Classification of allergic rhinitis can be classified. Old classification was seasonal, perennial, and occupational rhinitis. But the area classification, which is allergic rhinitis and its impact on asthma, classifies allergic rhinitis into intermittent symptoms and persistent symptoms having mild and moderate to severe symptoms. So, intermittent symptoms are less than 4 days a week or less than 4 weeks. Persistent are more than 4 days a week or more than 4 weeks. So mild symptoms having normal sleep, normal daily activities, sports and leisure, normal school day, and no troublesome symptoms, and moderate to severe symptoms containing one or more of the abnormal sleep, impaired daily activities, sports and leisure, and problems at school and troublesome symptoms. So they can be classified into intermittent mild, intermittent moderate severe, so persistent mild and persistent moderate severe like that. The etiology of allergic rhinitis, atopy is the common cause, which is a hereditary condition. Just it represents a predisposition to develop allergic disease. So when a person is prone to allergic disease, like some allergens, then when there is allergen in inhalation or something, then person will develop the allergy. Allergens, the seasonal rhinitis allergens are grass and tree pollens, and perennial rhinitis, the house dust mite, is a common allergic condition. Basically, digestive enzymes excreted in the fecal matter of the house dust mite. Domestic pets like cats, dogs, rabbits, guinea pigs, each, and cockroaches, basically in the inner cities. Nowadays, cockroaches are a common cause of allergy. Occupational conditions like flowers, laboratory animals, latex, smokes, and fume industries, they are also the common factors for allergic disease. So here we can see air particles like allergens are pollens from the trees, then dust mite, animal danders. Uh, so this is the smoke, which also is a cause of allergy, and dust, which are also a cause of allergy. So therefore, allergy can be of many due to many conditions. It is different in different individuals. Food and drug-induced rhinitis, basically more common in children. Foods like milk, eggs, and cheese are common in children, and nuts, fish, citrus fruits are common in adults. Drugs like aspirin, antihypertensives like beta blockers and ACE inhibitors, antipsychotics, and topical nasal decongestants might lead to allergic symptoms. Again, pollution like perfumes, tobacco smoke, traffic fumes, domestic sprays also might lead to allergic rhinitis. What is the pathogenesis behind allergic rhinitis? The pathogenesis is allergen when it enters the body, it reacts to mast cells and lymphocytes. When it reacts to mast cells, they'll release histamines, prostaglandins, leukotrienes, bradykinins, and PEF. That leads to hyperreactivity and leads to immediate symptoms. Therefore, the mast cells lead to immediate symptom production like itching, sneezing, watery nasal discharge, and nasal congestion. The lymphocytes, on the other hand, they produce interleukin 2, 3, 5, GM-CSF, then actin B lymphocytes and eosinophils. Then they cause the chronic ongoing rhinitis like nasal obstruction, loss of smell, and nasal hyperreactivity. They are common in perennial allergic rhinitis. They are something allergen when it enters our body when it acts on the mast cells leads to degradation of preformed materials like histamine and proteases and newly formed genetic materials like cysteine, leukotrienes, prostaglandins, PF, bradykinin, interleukins, TNF alpha, and GM-CSF. How to diagnose allergic rhinitis? Diagnosis is done by history. So you have to ask for seasonality, either it's seasonal or perennial. Frequency and severity of symptoms, either it's mild or intermittent, okay, or moderate, like that. In patient's dominant symptoms, what are those? Those are either sneezing, itching, or nasal obstruction. History of potential allergic triggers. Most of the patients know their allergic triggers, most of them. So if something leads to allergy, then patient knows. Personal history or family history of atopic disease, so atopy like asthma, history of trauma, some trauma in the past might lead to intrinsic form or allergic rhinitis, history of mucopurulent rhinorrhea, facial pain and fever, suggestive chronic rhinosinusitis, drug allergy and food provoking factors. So if they know about certain drugs, then they might be allergic to certain drugs like aspirin. Clinical features are the symptoms of seasonal rhinitis. So seasonal basically happens in certain seasons. So in seasonal form, sneezing, nasal discharge, obstruction, and itching are more common factors, more common conditions. Sneezing happens basically paroxysmal condition. It's frequent intervals throughout the day and more in the morning times because of cold climate. Nasal discharge is watery and mucoid or sometimes yellowish when there is increased eosinophil load in the blood. The nasal obstruction and blockage, itching of nose, eyes, and palate, or tearing or redness of the eyes, periorbital edema, then burning or raw sensation of throat, sometimes wheezing and chest tightness when the patient develops allergic asthma. Then perennial conditions, rhinitis, it's non-specific symptoms. They are long-standing nasal congestion and postnasal drip are the common clinical features. The discharge might be viscous or purulent. Then conjunctivitis is less frequent, and secondary symptoms like loss of smell and taste, sinusitis, etc. are common. Then sneezing is less common. So to compare with perennial and the seasonal rhinitis, sneezing is less common in seasonal perennial rhinitis. Signs in the nose, they can be, when you look from outside, they can be transverse crease at the dorsum of nose because of persistent rubbing of the nose, like is a Darius line. Allergic salute when the patient just has a habit of rubbing the nose from inferior superiorly. Watery nasal discharge can be seen when you see on the nose, and pale or bluish nasal mucosa along with buggy and swollen or hypertrophic turbinates. Polyps might or might be there, along with septal deviation also sometimes might be there. So these are the the bluish mucosa, nasal mucosa, hypertrophic turbinates, allergic salute, and Darius line. Eyes, patient might develop periorbital edema, conjunctival congestion and watering. There will be marked edema of the palpebral conjunctiva and papillary hypertrophy of the tarsal conjunctiva leading to cobblestone appearance. There might be dark circles under the eyes, allergic signals. They might be due to repetitive vigorous rubbing in the periorbital region and impaired venous return from the skin and the subcutaneous tissues. There might be extra skin fold or line under the lower eyelids, so-called Denny-Morgan lines. Here you can see this is the extra skin fold, Denny-Morgan lines, the allergic signals. This conjunctiva, this is pharyngitis, cobblestone appearance in the pharynx, and this is the congested nasal mucosa with nasal discharge. So nasal mucosa is pale and congested and swollen. So in the ear you can see retracted tympanic membrane and OME. Pharynx there will be granular pharyngitis or cobblestone appearance like this. In the larynx, a certain patient might develop laryngeal edema, but this is uncommon. And sometimes bronchospasm and allergic features leading to allergic asthma might be there. Investigations carried out for allergic rhinitis are complete blood count. You have to see for eosinophil, then ESR sometimes might be raised, then absolute eosinophil count might be raised sometimes. Serum Ig measurements, so it's Ig mediated immune complex disease, therefore Ig might be high. Nasal smell for cytology, then for eosinophils basically neutrophils, basophils, mast cells, epithelial cells, and bacteria. So you have to see for eosinophils. Nasal swabs have to be taken for bacteriology and viral studies if there is an infection. Skin prick tests, they are commonly performed. A RAS is radio allergy osmotic test for allergic, ELISA, nasal provocation or nasal challenge test. So you have to apply a certain amount of allergen in the nose. So inhalation. Then, as if you look the patient for any sneezing, itching like that, then diagnostic nasal endoscopy has to be performed to see for the any mass lesion or any polyps or any finding of the nose. X-ray PNS has to be seen for mucosal edema or hypertrophy or sometimes sinusitis. In CT scan of nose and PNS, coronal axial and saddle cuts are done to look for mucosal edema or sinusitis or any other pathologies or congenital anomalies or anomalies of the osteometal complex. Skin prick test. The skin is usually pricked or scratched or patched or intradermal. The test might be intradermal also. Skin prick test, simple prick, pricking the skin with a needle or pin containing a small amount of allergen. So might be patient might develop hives. Okay, patient might develop allergic reactions. When the patch test, applying the allergen containing patch to the skin, if response is seen in the form of rash, urticaria, or anaphylaxis, then patient has a hypersensitivity to that allergen. So we can find out the hypersensitivity reactions. Intradermal test, a small amount of the allergen solution is injected into the skin and the response is seen. The negative control is saline, salt water. Usually response is not expected in individuals, but however, if a patient reacts to negative control, then the skin is, for whatever reason, extremely sensitive, because usually saline doesn't cause any reactions. The positive control is histamine, to which everyone is expected to react. So failure to react to histamine, it seems that medicines in the sufferer is taking could block the response to the histamine and allergen. Suppose when the patient is taking anti-allergic medicine, sometimes histamine also might not lead to production of the reactions. This is simple skin prick test. The patient has been pricked here by the needle. Then the doctor or the examiner will see for hives in the skin after some time if there is allergy. So these are the same things, skin test. So the skin is pricked by the allergen. So you can see hives here. You can see the reaction is there. So just in the forearm, they have been commonly, forearm is a common site, forearm and back are the common sites for allergic tests. They are the hives. You can see histamine is the positive and negative control. So this is the histamine is causing the reaction. Then feather, cat, dog, horse, like that. This pollen, the allergen have been injected over here. What are the treatment modalities for allergic rhinitis? They are allergen avoidance is the number one therapy, but patient has to be able to avoid the allergen. Pharmacotherapy, immunotherapy, and treatment of complicating factors. How to avoid the allergen? So it is useful for a single or unusual allergen. Suppose when the patient is allergic to coconut, then they can avoid coconut. But when the patient is allergic to other certain things, multiple allergens, it is difficult to avoid the allergen. Patient has to identify certain airway allergen, and they have to completely or partially avoid the allergens, like elimination of occupational allergen exposure. Suppose when the patient is allergic to flour or latex, then they can avoid that. Elimination of pet allergen exposure. Suppose when the patient is allergic to dander of the dog or pet animals, then they have to avoid it. Mite antigen control measures have to be done. Frequent pet washings, cockroach control measures, closed windows in homes or cars, central heating and cooling, and central air filtering system are important for to avoid certain allergens. In pharmacotherapy, pharmacotherapy is the treatment of allergy by drugs. They are usually not complete relief. They just cause the partial relief, because when you stop taking the medicines, then patient again might develop allergic reactions. So primary therapy for seasonal or perennial allergic rhinitis is the pharmacotherapy. Steroids are the mainstay of treatment of allergic rhinitis. I will discuss later on regarding the effectiveness of corticosteroids. It can be used as topical form, oral form, or intramuscular route, which is not usually recommended. Topical form is in sprays and drops. They are extremely effective for all nasal symptoms of allergy, like sneezing, itching, nasal discharge, nasal blockage. Then beclomethasone, budesonide, fluticasone, mometasone, all can be used. Oral drops, oral uses like prednisolone 1 mg per kg per day in tapering dose for 2 weeks give the good results. Therefore, IM injections are not usually recommended. Next are second was mast cell stabilizers like sodium chromoglycate drops and sprays. They are less effective than topical corticosteroids, because mast cell stabilizers, so stabilize the mast cells and they don't let the mast cells to degranulate. It is used for treatment of first wish in young children when steroids is not usually indicated. Antihistamines like chlorpheniramine, torphinarine, estimizole, loratadine, cetirizine, fexofenadine, ibastina are all commonly used. They are used for effective for sneezing, itching, watery discharge, and eyes, palate, and throat symptoms. But they are less effective in nasal congestion and blockage. So they are mainly taken at bedtime because they might sedate the patient. So newer generations are less sedative than older ones. Topical vasoconstrictors, they have just limited role for allergic conditions. Xylomethazolone, oxymetazoline, and ephedrine, they are commonly used topically, but effective against nasal blockage, but they have to be used for short period only. Prolonged use more than 2 weeks might lead to rhinitis medicamentosus. I will discuss later on. Topical anticholinergics like ipratropium bromide 0.03% is displayed that are used for watery rhinorrhea, and they are usually used for intrinsic rhinitis anticholinergics to decrease the secretions. Leukotriene inhibitors, montelukast and zafirlukast are also commonly used in allergic rhinitis. Leukotriene inhibitors. What is allergen-specific immunotherapy? This is the important topic nowadays. Specific immunotherapy. Suppose when the patient is allergic to certain drug or certain allergen, so patient can be like therapy can be given. So it is a practice of administering gradually increasing quantities of an allergen extract to an allergic subject to eradicate the allergic symptoms by subsequent exposure to the causative allergen. Like we have to give injections time by time to a certain concentration. Indications are pollen sensitive patients having single allergen, very important, failing to respond to conventional treatment. Suppose when the patient fails to treatment to step bladder treatment for allergic rhinitis, having intolerable side effects of treatment and unable to avoid the allergen. Suppose when the patient is having certain profession, he cannot stay in the profession, so they have to go, patient has to go for allergen specific immunotherapy. But if specific allergen can be found out. Contraindications are patients with multiple allergens, so not useful, significant medical illness, and taking drugs likely to impair the treatment of anaphylaxis. So in certain conditions, like when the patient is having diabetes, uncontrolled diabetes, hypertension, then the drugs might lead to impair the treatment pattern. Therefore, there are contraindications for immunotherapy. The procedure is allergen injected subcutaneously into increasing doses till maximum tolerated response is reached. So it takes around 2 to 3 years for the maximum response to be tolerated. So may also be delivered by the oral, nasal, or sublingual routes. The monoclonal anti-IgE antibody is the one which is commonly used. It induces the reduction of serum-free IgE levels. So IgE is decreased, reduces symptoms mediated by IgE. Again, it's IgE mediated immune response. Therefore, IgE symptoms decreased, then reduces the severity of symptoms of seasonal allergic rhinitis. So it is not useful for perennial conditions, but for seasonal conditions, this is important. Success rates are as high as 80 to 90% for certain allergens. So you have to find out certain allergens only. The course is for 2 years or more. Therefore, patient has to be with you for treatment. So patient has to be treatment bound. So if the patient doesn't adhere to treatment, then it might be difficult for complete dosing. Coming to next topic for today, this is intrinsic rhinitis, which is called as non-allergic and non-infective rhinitis or vasomotor rhinitis. So non-allergic, non-infective or vasomotor. So this is due to decreased vasomotor tone in the body. The spectrum of intrinsic rhinitis might be vasomotor rhinitis again, non-allergic rhinitis with eosinophilic syndrome, NAIRS, occupational rhinitis, patient having floor, animal, wood, latex, paint industries, and rhinitis medicamentosa, prolonged use of decongestant nasal drops, drug-induced like propranolol, OCPs, and antidepressants, endocrine, hypothyroid, pregnancy, menstruation, miscellaneous conditions like honeymoon rhinitis, emotional or non-aerophro or addiction. What is the autonomic nerve supply of nose? The nose is supplied by the autonomic supply. Parasympathetic stimulation of nose leads to vasodilatation and increased nasal secretion, and sympathetic stimulation leads to vasoconstriction and decreased nasal secretion. So for us in autonomic supply, or basically in intrinsic rhinitis, parasympathetic stimulation is common. That leads to increased nasal secretions and vasodilatation. That leads to intrinsic rhinitis. So autonomic nerve supply to nose is found by deep petrosal nerve, which brings to sympathetic stimulation, and greater superficial petrosal nerve that brings the parasympathetic fibers, which colleagues are the median, which form the median nerve, and the postganglion fibers to pterygopalatine ganglion, and they supply the nasal gland. So this you can see over here. This is the deep petrosal nerve coming through here, the intercarotid artery, okay, plexus, and is the greater petrosal nerve, which is the branch of the seventh nerve. They just combine to form the median nerve, okay, and then the median canal. So now median canal, and from there they enter pterygopalatine ganglion. The postganglionic fibers supply the nasal cavity, nose, postganglionic fibers. And the pathogenesis of Bismuth rhinitis is overactivity of parasympathetic nervous system of nose. Overactivity leading to nasal congestion, nasal block, and watery anorexia. They are due to either uh, nasal dilatation, okay, and increased nasal glandular secretion. So parasympathetic overactivity of the nose. Trigger factors are emotional stress, sudden change in temperature, humidity, blast of cold air, dust, smoking, and traffic fumes. Clinical features are the symptoms are perennial form, they are nasal blockage, profuse watery rhinorrhea, paroxysmal early morning sneezing, and personal dip. Uh, they are similar to perennial allergic rhinitis. The signs are tuberculosis are congested and hypertrophied, and sick nasal polyp, hypertrophic rhinitis, and sinusitis. This is a congested and swollen turbinate. So how to differentiate between allergic and intrinsic rhinitis? The history of allergen exposure in allergic rhinitis, patient has history of allergen exposure, but intrinsic form there is no history of allergen exposure, but patient has certain uh, like certain conditions, certain triggers might be there in intrinsic form, but not allergens. Nasal itching is more common in allergic rhinitis and which is minimal in intrinsic form. Sneezing is more common in allergic, less common in intrinsic. Rhinorrhea is more common in intrinsic and less common in allergic. Nasal obstruction might be common in both. Hyposmia is more common in allergic rhinitis. Then nasal mucosa will be pale in allergic but will be congested in and swollen in intrinsic form. Nasal polyps might be positive in allergic form, but intrinsic they are rare. Then absolute sniffle count will be increased in allergic and decreased normal in intrinsic form. Nasal sniffle, same thing, they are increased, then which is normal in intrinsic form. And skin prick test will be positive and will be negative in intrinsic. Then treatment is steroid spray, antihistamines, nasal decongestants in allergic form, but when ipratropium, bromide, and botulinum toxins are important for intrinsic rhinitis. How to treat vasomotor rhinitis or intrinsic rhinitis? So general measures are sleep with head elevated by 30 degrees, so there will be less congestion. Sleep and work in cool environment, not very cold, so there will be no allergy or intrinsic form. Keep the body warm. Do regular exercise program to improve vasomotor tone. Avoid trigger factors. Certain trigger factors to be avoided. Medical treatment by antihistamines are the first line drugs. Systemic antihistamines like cetirizine, fexofenadine, loratadine, levocetirizine, Avastin. They to some extent they decrease the congestion. Then topical like isolastine spray can be used. Nasal decongestants like systemic decongestant, phenylephrine, pseudoephedrine. Topical like xylometazoline, oxymetazoline, and saline. They cannot be used for longer time. So just use for short time, then stop. Then again they can be restarted. But topical and systemic steroids can be used. So drugs used are for antihistamines. They reduce sneezing, so they are not very useful for intrinsic rhinitis. So they decrease the rhinorrhea and nasal block to some extent, but smell is not reduced. Decreased smell can be treated by antihistamines. Steroid sprays they are very important for to reduce the sneezing, rhinorrhea as well as nasal block, and they are helpful to reduce the to regain the smell also. Sodium chromoglycate is important for is mildly useful for sneezing, rhinorrhea, and nasal block. Then topical decongestants they open the nose, nasal block. Ipratropium is important to reduce the rhinorrhea. Steroid sprays they are useful for the strength and puff, beclomethasone, budesonide, fultic acid, mometasone, all can be used. 2 puffs twice a day or once a day. And surgical treatment is by the aim of surgical treatment is to reduce the size of nasal terminates, thus to relieve nasal obstruction. Sectioning the parasympathetic secremotor fibers of nose, median neurectomy to relieve excessive rhinorrhea. So this is the commonly performed surgery. So what are the surgeries to reduce the size of terminates? They are for mucosal hypertrophy on the surface can be used, electrocautery and laser can be used. In submucosal form, electrocautery can be used as submucosal diathermy. Cryotherapy can be used or radiofrequency ablation can be used. For bony hypertrophy, submucosal resection of inferior concha can be performed, and for mucosal plus bony hypertrophy, partial or total turbinectomy can be performed. So these are the common surgeries. They are partial turbinectomy. The turbinate is reduced partially, both bone and the mucosa are removed. Then submucosal diathermy is submucosal diathermy is there. Then total turbinectomy, both turbinate is reduced. Then radio frequency ablation of the turbinate also can be, turbinate mucosa can be done. So transseptal approach or transantral approach for median neurectomy, median surgery also can be performed. So this is the median nerve which is cut over here. So this is a modified, this is the magnified view. So the median nerve is reduced here. So if the median nerve is cut at the median canal, the parasympathetic cerebromotor fibers can be controlled. Coming to small topic, rhinitis medicamentosa, so it might be useful from examination point of view. It is defined as rebound nasal congestion due to use of intranasal decongestants for more than 10 to 14 days. So prolonged use of them can lead to tachyphylaxis, and more frequent dose is required time by time. So nasal medications containing benzalkonium chloride, they cause more rebound congestion. Offending drugs are zydomethazolone and oxymetazoline. They contract small muscles of venous erectile tissue present in the nasal terminates, so that leads to mucosal shrinkage and decrease the airway resistance. So pathogenesis of rhinitis medicamentosa is prolonged use of topical nasal decongestants leads to prolonged nasal vasoconstriction that leads to tissue hypoxia and nasal vasculitis and rebound nasal congestion. So that also leads to increased parasympathetic activity, also leads to nasal vasodilatation. They have longer effect on beta receptors compared to alpha receptors, so that also leads to nasal vasodilatation because effect on beta receptors. So negative feedback effect on endogenous norepinephrine leads to, on stoppage of topical nasal decongestant, again that leads to nasal vasodilatation and rebound nasal congestion. Clinical features are chronic nasal block requiring increased dose and frequency of topical decongestants after its prolonged use. Nasal mucosa appears hyperemic, granular, and boggy in early stages and pale and anemic in later because after some time there will be hypoxia. The treatment is immediate withdrawal of topical decongestant, which is important, and the FSH substituted with the systemic nasal decongestants for some time. Nasal corticosteroid sprays like oral corticosteroids for severe cases only for short time can be given. The Rhinostat system, basically this is a system which reduces the dose of decongestants by certain strength, suppose 0.5, 0.25, 0.1 like that, the percentage is reduced. So this is a static system. So patient education is used to avoid topical decongestant use for more than 10. This is very important because most of our patients, when they use the decongestants, because it's easy, they use for prolonged time. I have seen patients using decongestant for 6 months or more than that. So it is important that patients should not use nasal decongestant at least for more than 7 days at one time. So they can restart after some time, but it is not, it is, but they have to stop after 1 week. Thank you so much.